This is my audience for today. Good evening, Earthlings. Some of you may already know, and some of you may not want to believe, but aliens are real. For those of you who don't believe me, let me tell you a story. This story takes place in Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. My research comes from two different documentaries, which are Roswell UFO Conspiracy Unlocked and Alien Encounters Roswell. I also researched Roswell's Bizarre Crash by BuzzFeed and The Real Roswell from the History Channel. From the crash in 1947, the military cover-ups, and eyewitness accounts, I'm going to take you through the hard facts of the most recent UFO crash site. Back in 1947, Roswell, New Mexico was a very small town, and that primarily was made up of military and farmers. The town relied on the military base, and the military relied on the civilians, so when they were the proper age, they could join the military. At that time, the Roswell Air Force Base was the only nuclear facility in the United States, according to Neil Nixon, who is a UFOologist. There was a particular evening in July of 1947 where there was a thunderstorm rolling in. A farmer by the name of Mac Brazel decided that he needed to herd his sheep in, which little did he know he was going to stumble upon something that would change the town of Roswell forever. He found a wreckage on his land, which he wasn't familiar with any of the debris, and with this unfamiliar debris, he decided that he would collect some and take it into town in a couple days to show the sheriff. After he showed the sheriff also had no idea what it was, so he called the Roswell Air Force Base. According to Specialist Philip Mansell, the military then sent out a man by the name of Jesse Marcel. Marcel collected as much of the material as he was able to, and there's even a testimony from his son, Jesse Marcel Jr., that that night that his father picked up the material, he went back to their house, woke up his sons, so he woke up Jesse Marcel Jr. as well as his brother, and brought them down into the kitchen and laid the material out. There was a rod sitting down, and Jesse Marcel Jr. picked the rod up, and when the light reflected off it, he saw that there was writing on the rod. His father then said, "Son, you may have been the first person to see writing from another world." 2 days later, Walter Hunt, who was part of the military, was sent to deliver a statement to the local radio and newspapers. Walter Hunt also went on record later to say that he was actually tasked directly from the Army, and that the statement actually said that they were in possession of a flying saucer. According to Mansell, within only a couple hours of the statement, the military retracted their statement and stated that it was actually only a weather balloon. This was not the case, however, and that would not become clear or uncovered for another 30 years. There were many people who went on record decades later and who stated that military as well as civilian eyewitnesses were threatened and silenced, being told that if they were to ever say a word, that they would be killed. One eyewitness, Frankie Rowe, who was just a young girl at the time in 1947, she was the daughter of one of the men who was sent to clean up the crash, and her father had told her and her siblings that when he was there, he saw charred bodies, and that he wished that he could have just helped them. He also had brought a foil-like material home from the crash site, which was given the name memory metal, according to Mansell. Frankie Rose said that she held the memory metal in her hand, and when she closed her hand over the memory metal, it shrunk into her hand to where it felt as though nothing was there, and she had to open her hand to make sure it still was, which when she opened her hand, it went back to its full size and had no dents or creases whatsoever. According to Mansell, who had spent years interviewing eyewitnesses, which included some military personnel, they told him that everything from the crash site, as well as those charred bodies, were transported to the Wright Field in Ohio. Um, Today, it is now known as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Um, this is where the wreckage and the bodies were studied. When everything came back into light in the 1980s, there were so many people coming forward about the crash that the military actually had to make a statement, and they changed their story on what actually crashed. This was due to Jesse Marcel Sr. coming forward and verifying in an interview that after all those years, he knew that the materials that they said was a weather balloon was actually not. He knew this due to his training and on the military base, he specialized in weather balloons, and they released about 2 every single day. So he knew the material was not what the military was saying it was, but back in the day, he was actually silenced into to not say any more. And according to Jesse Jr., he and his brother were told by his father to never speak another word of what they saw ever again. After this statement, the military had to change their story and say that it was an experimental weather balloon. Their reasoning was due to the fact that in the 40s, they were trying to spy on the Russians. According to Neil Nixon, this was a project called Mongol. Nixon states, the intention of it was to use balloons, like weather balloons, but huge freight trains of them to lift listening devices into the high atmosphere, and the point of doing this was so that they could spy on the Russians' atomic tests. This was the explanation that the military gave us, changing and adding more to their story, but this was just another cover-up. Because according to Mansell, the Roswell Air Force Base then closed, and there were actually documents that were leaked about about a project called Operation Majestic 12. This spoke of the charred bodies, the other alien objects, and that they were taken from the crash site, and spoke of a secret military base, which we all know to be Area 51, that is located north of Las Vegas, Nevada. In conclusion, the military tried multiple times to cover this up. They tried to cover up what happened in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and then later in the 80s. There have been countless people who have come forward and given testimonies that line up together, and there is also documentation that proves that the crash really happened. From the crash in 1947, the military cover-up, and eyewitnesses, I hope that you have opened your mind and are certain that aliens are real and exist, as I know to and believe. Thank you.